So, although we now have a single individual program for all, when we together, the international staff with our partners, work on that, in the beginning it will mean much more work. And the last not least, we created a framework document for partners when they are working together with us in operations. And that was very much based on the experience we have had in ISAF in Afghanistan. Because as you may know, there are 28 NATO member states. But in ISAF, there are 20 more partner countries. And those countries, I just mentioned Australia with 1,000 soldiers, but there are many others. Those countries, when they contribute to an operation, they want to have a say in the decision shaping, in the decision making. They want to be involved when we strategize, when we plot our strategies. So when we discussed the transition, the reality was that all those ISAF meetings on the working level, on the ministerial level, or on the summit level took place in the so-called ISAF format, 28 member states plus 20 partners. It was no longer the case that we were making decisions on behalf of our partners. Partners were fully involved. And I think that's right. There's basically nothing else than the old American mantra, no taxation without representation. That, I think, is what it boils down to. And that is what we incorporated in our new policy in Berlin. So with this package, allies have put partnerships at the core of our functions next to collective defense and crisis management. And we hope that our work will become more focused and that there will be more substance and, as I said, that it will be more flexible. So at the same time, we have seen that our different partnerships have evolved over the past 2 decades in different ways. There's the EAPC, the Mediterranean Dialogue, and the cooperation with countries in the Gulf. And as I have mentioned, there are many different needs and circumstances. We have also 7 global partners, as I just indicated, that is Australia, New Zealand, but in addition to that, we have an established partnership framework with Japan, South Korea, and you won't be surprised now with Afghanistan, Pakistan, and we have many other operational partners who are with us in operations, which you might not find so clear immediately. For example, in Kosovo, in our KFOR operation, we have had countries like Colombia and Argentina. So you might wonder what they were doing there, but this is part of the International Division of Labor on Security. And in ISAF, I just give you only 4 names of countries which joined ISAF only in the past 2 years. Important additions: Malaysia, the Muslim country, Mongolia, another Asian country, and we have had, and this is no joke, the country with the biggest per capita contribution in ISAF is the newest addition, Tonga. And it sounds funny, I know that, but the Tonga partners presented a contingent of 50 people, which per capita makes it the biggest contribution. And this is just to make a point on how wide the coalition in ISAF is. It is European, American, and Asian countries, and it's also, and that is important, 4 or 5 Muslim countries. So all of that, we hope, will help us to enhance our cooperation with partners, and the priority areas for consultation and cooperation include political consultations on security developments, which means in particular regional issues, our cooperation in operations, it means defense reform, where we have a strong record, interoperability, which is essential if our forces want to work together in whatever kind of endeavor. We have on our list of issues counterterrorism, counterproliferation, civil emergency planning. There will be a civil emergency planning exercise in this country in, I believe, September or October, and those so-called emerging security challenges, which in particular means cyber. So all this has been happening at the same time, and at the same time our existing frameworks will remain important, and we will continue using them for political consultations and for practical cooperation. And many of the countries which have been working with us in establishing partnership frameworks have a long record of cooperation and individual programs with NATO. We also will give support to defense education, training, and capacity building. This is an important field, and as I indicated, we have a lot of expertise there. We have a network of national defense institutions, we have the expertise from our allies and partners, and we will in the future have some more role for the alliance, which is trainer of first resort. So I think the lack of training in our in our cooperative approach will become even more important. If I may say that here in Moldova, our cooperation on that front is mainly related to the military academy with which we cooperate very closely. So in line with the strategic concept, the new policy also reaffirms NATO's readiness to engage with new interlocutors, in particular key global actors like China, like India. And the focus of this engagement will be on our priorities areas, and it is, I mean, when you look at China, it's a permanent member of the Security Council. NATO in its operations, which may be not so well known, our main operations all have a UN Security Council mandate. And so I think it's pretty evident that you need to be in touch with the permanent members. 3 out of the 5 permanent members are NATO allies. 1, Russia, we have a specific relationship in the framework of the NATO-Russia Council, so we didn't think we could afford not to have a dialogue with the 5th member state, permanent member state of the United Nations Security Council. Another key element, as I indicated, of our policy is increasing engagement in flexible formats. This is not a completely new idea, but NATO will increasingly try to use a 28+N mechanism for consultation and cooperation, and that is, as I indicated before, related to thematic issues. And we are looking at first ideas on that line. One idea, for example, is counter-piracy, and that will be a very interesting feature because, yes, NATO is there, off the Horn of Africa, the European Union is there, but you wouldn't be astonished who else is there with ships. And we literally sit in the same boat. You would have ships there from South Korea, Japan, Malaysia, Indonesia, China. Russia has a ship there, and India has a ship there. And we all started to learn to cooperate with each other in that endeavor. They are not part of the alliance. They are not part of the European Union. We all are part of the United Nations, however. So the United Nations created a framework for dialogue. We have a regional dialogue to make sure that the movements of these ships are coordinated, because it is no use if they all would be sitting in the same area, but none of them would be going in another area. So there has been a more and more established framework of cooperation between those ships from so many various countries. So this is one thematic issue on which we perhaps will have some flexible consultations in the future, just as an example. So what it also means for us in future is that we need to take a harder look at our resources. I indicated also NATO was hit by the financial crisis. So we know we will have no more resources, but we need to make better use of the resources which we have available. As I indicated, we also do a lot in the framework of NATO plus the individual partner. We have individual partner programs, so we have one with Moldova, and I think that is a very, very active relationship. In some instances, we also do what we call a planning and a review process, which means support in the area of defense reform. So in all of that, we are very busy and we are working together with our partners, including your country. And I think it's fair to say that your country will present this joint work in the North Atlantic Council, as it does every year, at the end of this month, and we'll have a debate in the North Atlantic Council on that. And it is about, as I indicated, defense reform. We help in terms of training, the military academy, and other issues. And let me also say that Moldova has been a security provider in many operations, not NATO operations, but that's not the point. This country has been stepping up to the plate and being actively involved in other operations, and partly we profit, if I may put it that way, indirectly, like in the situation in Afghanistan, where there's some support for the UN mission, so we do profit from it. But I just wanted to make the point that in my mind, Moldova has turned into a security provider. We also have what we call a Partnership for Peace trust fund to destroy dangerous pesticides, and we hope to get that one going operationally in the very immediate future. Another point which is of importance when it comes to Moldova is the situation in Transnistria. You know that NATO is not a participant in the 5+2 process. We are not. But that doesn't mean that we have no interest that this would develop. And in this sense, we hope that the next week we'll have some progress on that front when the 5+2 will meet again, and we wish every success in this endeavor. Let me repeat that we will have a civil emergency planning exercise here in this country later this year, where around 50 teams from 22 nations, allies and partners, will come together to practice their disaster response and other cooperation in emergency situations.